Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be creating a little sketchbook out of an old book. The idea came about because I was looking on Pinterest at just general things. I'm one of those people, I quite like just scrolling through Pinterest photos and getting some nice bits of inspiration, and I saw somebody creating sketchbooks out of an old book. And I went down to my local charity shop, thrift shop, and there was a really nice book that had a lot of damage inside. So there was quite a big section of rips through the middle of the paper. I'm not quite sure whether that was before it got into the charity shop or maybe during. It seems strange they put it on the shelf where there were whopping great rips inside of it, but it served the perfect purpose for me because it means that I can take the book block out without it damaging the book even further and feeling guilty that I'm taking an old book apart. So I thought that I would take you through this step by step, and you can see what I'm doing and see what I'm discovering as I go through taking the old book block out, making a new one out of sketchbook paper, and putting that inside to create a brand new sketchbook and something that I can take around with me and do some sketching in. So let's see how that turns out. So here's the book that I have, and I'm going to use this to create the cover of the sketchbook. So I'm going to take out this book block and I'm going to replace it with a new block that we're going to make now. And that will be made out of the sketchbook paper, and then I can use this as a sketchbook. I'm going to use this sketchbook paper. It's quite a nice paper. I had a look around the craft shops, and this was quite a nice one. It's not too thick either. I wanted to have plenty of pages in there, but it's nice and durable, and it's a nice surface to draw on. So to start with, I'm going to start folding my paper, and this might take a while, but I'm going to make sure that everything marries up nicely. And I'll fold down here. I have my bone folder as well, just to make sure that I've got a nice sharp crease at that edge. And then I'm going to keep on going until I have enough pages to fill the book. And like I said, this could take quite a while. Okay, so I have a nice big pile of folded paper now, and I want to make this the right size for this book. So we're going to have to do some trimming. I've got a scalpel here, or some people call them X-Acto knives, don't they? And I've made sure that I've got a nice sharp new blade in here so that when I'm cutting the paper, nothing gets snagged. If you have a blunt blade, it tends to rip the paper more than cut it. So I've made sure that I've got a new nice and sharp blade in here. So I went ahead and measured my book. I measured the width or the length of the paper down here, and then on this piece I've measured from the back of the book block right to this edge. I wanted to make sure that I'm actually measuring the paper and not just the cover. I needed to make sure that I measured this piece, the piece that I'm recreating, rather than just the width of the cover, because I want it to sit into this spine. You see how the paper is sort of sat into the curve of the spine? That's what I want to make sure that I'm covering. So I've got my piece here. That is the exact size I need. And now I'm going to keep cutting this piece. I'm going to use this one as a guide, and I'm going to keep cutting to this measurement. Take these off here, make some room. And I wanted to make sure that I'm not going to cut this paper on the top either, because I don't want to trim that down. I would usually use a metal ruler for this, but in the move that I did back in the summer, I still haven't found my metal ruler, so I'm going with my plastic one. I just need to make sure that I'm not going to slip. If you do have to use a plastic ruler, make sure that you are being very careful, because metal on the plastic can slip easily and cut your finger. So I wouldn't recommend it. I'm just doing this because at the moment I haven't got another option. Couple cuts there to make sure. Nice. Okay. Sometimes you might get a little snaggy bit because this paper is very thin, so it can sort of not cut, if that makes sense. You need to make sure that you're maybe do it a couple of times and just check that you're not ripping anything when you pull your paper away. Okay, so I now have my paper. I'm going to continue cutting all the rest of my pieces until I have the amount that I need. And I now have all of my pieces of paper, all of my folded pieces of paper, and I can start assembling my book block. I'm going to be creating what's called signatures. Now, if we look into, or might not be that visible on this book actually. Maybe, no, that book doesn't really show it. Maybe if I've got another one here. Oh, this one kind of shows it. Okay. So here we have these little individual booklets, which in this case have been glued, but we're going to stitch them. But these little individual booklets are called signatures, and they are what assemble to make the overall book block. So I'm going to be working in fives. So I'm going to put 5 of these folded pieces of paper together, and that will make my first signature. Okay. Now this is going to make my first signature. That's my first piece in assembling this book block. Now at this point you can trim this away if you want to even it out, or you can wait till you've got your whole book assembled at the end, which I'm not sure where I'm going to go with this yet, so I'm going to leave it for now. Okay, that took quite a while. I have all of my signatures now. All of these individual signatures are made up of 5 pieces of paper each, and then this is what's going to fit into my book cover. So I'm going to put that one to one side for a moment because I want to go back to this cover. I was just wondering how I want to play this. Usually, if I was going to remove a book block from a cover, you'd probably have to cut through the whole of this end paper. But I've just been looking at it, and I think I can get away with keeping this end paper because I quite like it. It's got a really nice subtle pattern. And I will preface this with, this is a book that I got at a charity shop, and it's got damage inside in places. So it's not really, it's got some, I can't find it now, but it's got some quite large rips inside. So it's not really useful as a book anymore. So I don't necessarily condone ripping apart lovely books, but in this case I'm giving it new life. So I think I can get away with gently prizing this away. making an interesting noise. Okay, let's get my scalpel and see if I can gently trim this away. I'm going very, very lightly because I don't really know what I'm cutting at the moment. Theoretically, I should just be cutting paper. There shouldn't really be anything in behind. There'll probably be, actually, there will be a piece of webbing in behind here that will be keeping the book in here, which is a good point. If I'm doing this, I'm going to have to see if I can peel my end paper back so I can get in there for my new piece of webbing. But let's just see how we get on with this. I don't want to go too deeply because I don't want to cut the spine. We do have to be careful because, oh yeah, that is coming away anyway there. Okay. Okay, so that's going to be a repair job. Just want to get this started. Just want to get this cut going, if that makes sense. Something's happening. Okay. This is going to take a little bit of me playing with it, I think. Seeing how far I can go with it. I'm trying to be very, very careful because I'm aware that this spine has completely come away. It's holding on to something there, but I'm not sure it's holding on to the cover. I think it's holding on to the webbing. That's fine because I'm gonna when I get this apart, I'm gonna see if I can completely repair that spine. It does mean that I might end up losing this end paper. I'm trying not to because it's really nice, and again, it's an original feature of the book as well, and I'd quite like to keep it if I can. So I'm going to play around with this and see where I get to. Okay, I got that cut started, so now I can carry on trimming up through. Okay. Ooh. So that is away from that. Okay, right. So that edge is away. Oh, it's holding on to something slightly there, and I'm not sure whether I want to try and take it away or whether I might keep that. Try and keep that in place, but then again, if I keep it in place, it'll be harder for me to glue in behind it to repair it. So maybe, oh, there we go. Okay, that didn't take too much. So let's put that there. Let's move on to the back of the book. Now this bit, there's a teeny bit of spine damage happening there potentially. So let's see where we get on with this. This one's holding on a bit longer, so I think potentially the front half of the book might have been subject to maybe drier storage conditions. Or actually, maybe if it was against a damp wall, it might have just affected the integrity of the glue and the leather at the front. And the back's holding on a bit more potentially. Okay. What are we looking here? Really, one saving grace about the front cover coming off does mean that I can maybe get into this part a bit easier and trying to keep that in one piece. It looks like it's quite good actually, so I think we should be fine. Let's see how we can get this off. Okay, so we now have our book block, which I'm going to move out of the way, and we have our cover. So obviously there's damage on the front piece which needs repairing. So I'm going to see, okay, so it needs to be that way, right. So that's sort of sitting. Okay, so I think this is going to be a bit of glue and a bit of masking tape on the front to hold it in place sort of job. So then I can get in and really reinforce this spine. The back is looking fine. There's a bit of cracking at the top, which is I was worried about. But on the whole, it's okay. So I think this needs to be peeled back so I can get in here to do some reinforcing. So that's my next stage, see how this happens. I want to see if I can peel back this end paper ever so slightly as well, which, well, if I'm careful, I probably will manage to do that. Let's use my paper here just to raise that up so I can get in there. Okay, that's coming away quite nicely. And that's mainly because actually it's the book webbing that's coming away nicely. Oh, did that tear through? Difficult to tell. No, okay, that's good. So it's just the back layer of that paper. Okay. Okay. So I have to be careful here. I wonder if I come from the other side and see if that will do. Okay, we managed to get all of this stripped back here, so now I can get a new webbing in here, and the end paper has stayed nicely intact with no rips, so that's good. The spine, however, as you can see, did completely come off, which is fine because then that means that we know what we're working with. So I'm going to now look at bringing this spine, bringing this edge back so I can get to the webbing, and then we will look at assembling the book cover back together, then making our book block, and then working out a slightly backward way of getting this book block in with the webbing in place, and then gluing the end paper to the book, which usually would make your book block, put your end papers on, put your webbing over the top, and then glue it into the cover. I'm doing it, like I said, slightly backwards because I want to keep as much of the integrity of the original cover as I can. Right, I've now got both back. That was a little bit of a mission. It took a lot of sort of very slowly peeling back and very gentle trims away with the scalpel just to make sure that that all stayed intact. There was one teeny little bit here of loss. I have kept it over here, um, to see if I can get it back into place. I'm not sure if I will be able to because of just because of the nature of how thin it is, but we shall see. So my first thoughts on this are trying to remember what way it goes. This is the front, so this is right. Yeah, see, so there is a bit of, and unfortunately it's on the front as well. Like there. So how do I want to approach this is the big question. So it goes like that. I think is this slightly, that goes on the front, doesn't it? And that goes behind. Oh no, okay, so that joins together down there. So that actually marries up exactly at the bottom, and then over the at the top here, this has to sort of sit on the top, so the spine is actually sitting over that little bit of the front cover. So I'm not going behind anything, so I should be able to mount a piece of paper in behind, glue it up nicely, marry that up together, and that should work. And masking tape it to make sure it sits okay. Okay, so that's my next step. Get a piece of paper in here to join these back together. Okay, so I've got a piece of thin cardstock here, which I'm going to mount in there, I think. I think that's going to work nicely, because then that gives me a base to attach the spine and the other cover to. And I'll have to trim this back slightly. I've just sort of cut a random length, but I wanted to make sure that it was the same width as the end paper, just so nothing was showing. And I don't think that's gonna hurt. Gonna get some glue in here, and I want to make sure that I've got plenty of glue on this this edge here, this sort of frayed edge of the book cloth, because that's what's going to adhere to its sort of counterpart on the spine piece itself. I'm a big sort of sucker for history and detail, so things like this, although it looks a bit tedious, it does feel necessary, and it feels worth it as well. So let's get this stuck down here. See, that's adhering quite nicely. That's good. Need to get a bit more under there. Try not to get any on the front of the cover. I can give it a gentle wash away because this is only PVA if I need to, but I'd rather not get any on at all. Setting quite nicely. doesn't matter so much on this bit because this brown bit I want to cover with the other corresponding part of the spine, so that's not too bad. That doesn't matter if there's any glue on that part. Okay, let's get our spine and get that glued in place. Ooh, right. This is quite a gentle paper, so it should be okay. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That should bend there quite happily. So let's get some glue on this. Now, I will say that I'm not a professional book binder. I just did bookbinding in college and sort of fell in love with it. So I've made loads of books over the years, but I'm by no means a professional bookbinder or professional restorer. So if anybody does watch this that is a professional book restorer, I can only apologize. I'm just doing this because I want to keep the book as good as I can make it. I'm sure if you were approaching this, you would have a very different approach and probably much more systematic and much more professional. I'm doing what I can. And at the end of this is going to be a little sketchbook for me anyway, so. I probably could have used a bigger brush. I want to make sure that there's plenty of fresh glue at this edge, but I don't want it to be bathing in it because I don't want it seeping through, but I think this is good. It's dry there. It's not dry, but it's tacky, and I kind of want it to be wet, so it's not going to come away. Okay. I'm going to have to do this. And that has to go over that. Okay. Here we go. I'm hoping this will look okay, especially when the book block is in place and it's all nicely tightly bound. It's nice and flat in here, and then I can approach that join. Okay, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Like I said, I'm sure there are professional restorers out there, but there absolutely are professional restorers out there that could get this looking perfect. But sadly, I'm not a professional book restorer, so like I said, I'm just doing what I can. Okay, I'm gonna try and get. I've got it all married up, but I'm gonna try and get a bit more glue here around these bits and down. See, I was saying I needed a bigger brush just now, but I think I probably need a smaller brush for this part. Okay, it's going on the front, but I'll have to just wash that away with a damp cloth in a little while. Oh, that was quite a big bit. Okay. Take that bit away there. Right. might just have to be a necessary evil. Okay. That's not too bad. I don't think this is going too badly at all, really. Folder in here. Just use the edge of this chopping board. Right, I'm going to put some low tack masking tape on this joint to keep it in place while it dries. And I think it's going to be a case of however it dries is how it's going to dry. But it's one piece again, or two halves at least, not in three pieces. So we can get on to the back cover. Yeah, and then this is going to be, there was a slight rip here when I cut that bit earlier, but that'll be fine when that's closed. But when I get my book block in here, I've still got this area here to work with. Just trim that down to size, and I'm going to get some glue on this part of the cover. Okay, that's looking nice. So marry that up. And also, not only is it a cleaner break, it's in a better position as well, because it's right in the crease. It kind of hides itself, but like I said, that's just typical, isn't it? Oh, no, that did not work. Okay. I might put some glue on this side as well, actually. Might sit down. There we go. Look at that. That's much nicer, isn't it? Okay, let's just hold that in place for a bit. Do what it needs to do. Let's get some of the masking tape. Then we can get onto the book block, the sketchbook part. Like I said, this was kind of the unplanned bit. I didn't think I'd be doing so much repairing on this, but I think it's absolutely worth it. Okay, so that is now a book again. When we've applied some pressure here, I think that's going to sit nicely. Yeah, okay, good. Right, that's now got to dry, so that can stay there. Let's look at the book block. Okay, so now we're onto the book block itself, the bit that's going to be my sketchbook. So, I was looking at this just now, and I think I really enjoy this edge. I quite like the undulation of the way the pages are sort of waving, you know, that sort of up and down effect. I really enjoy that. So I might, when I've stitched this together, I might keep that. If I do, then generally the process, if you don't want that, you would line up your ruler and you would take a very, very sharp scalpel and you can trim very, very slowly to get it even. The other way would be, if you had a good bookbinding knife, is to sandwich it in between a couple of boards with just a little bit showing, the bit that you want to trim basically, and clamp it together, and then take your very sharp bookbinding knife and you sort of almost saw it together, and that gets it nice and flat. So there's a couple of ways of doing it, but I think I might keep it with this sort of texture. I quite enjoy that. Okay, so to make this into one book block, we're going to stitch it together. But first we need to determine where our holes are going to be for the stitches, and then puncture the holes with this little fellow, which is an awl, AWL. It probably has other names in different places, but the only name that I know it has is an awl. So I'm not sure whether that's going to be appropriate for where you are, but if you look up bookbinding awl or woodworking awl, then you will find it. So I think I'm going to start in the middle. Don't knock the camera. Okay. My room is limited here, so let's do that. Get things out of the way. Okay, so let's start in the middle. I love this. This is my pattern master. I use this in sewing, and it's perfect. It gets everything I want measured nice and accurately, and I can determine the middle by just matching the numbers up either side. It's perfect. But I think I actually want to do it in here. Okay. So I'm going to put one here, and I'm going to put one about 1.5 centimeters down on each end. And then probably I think I could get away with just doing the middle of these. Yeah, I think that will be fine. So this is going to be my pattern piece. This was an extra piece of paper that I cut that didn't come into my number count for the pieces of paper for the book block itself, so I kept it separate. So I'm going to just puncture these holes by folding it like that and giving a gentle push with the awl. Okay, now that's my pattern piece. So I now get my first signature, get the middle. There's something so satisfying about bookbinding. Okay, and now I do the same. It takes a little bit more pressure because it's slightly thicker, but not too much. You can do this with a saw as well if you offer up the whole book block together and mark your pieces. You can just sort of saw the line and that creates your holes, but I'm not doing it that way. I'm doing it this way. So that one's done. There we go. So now I'm going to keep carrying on with that and getting all of my holes and all of my signatures, so then we can start the sewing process. Okay, so now all of my holes have been punctured. I have somewhere for my needle to go through to sew everything together. So that's my next step, and then that becomes one solid book, which I can then have many years, probably, at the thickness of this, of sketching ahead of me with. So there's multiple different things you can use. You can get, in here somewhere, this linen bookbinding thread, or you can use any thick thread really. I'm going to use button thread today. Well, this is actually an upholstery thread, sorry, so it's slightly thinner than button thread, but it's a nice strong thread that will keep my book together for a very long time. In here somewhere is my nice long needle I use for bookbinding. Ooh, go in there. So I need to make sure that I have a good length of thread, and I am probably going to have to join threads as I go along, but that is absolutely fine. Okay, let's put that one there. Let's join our first set of pages together. So I'm going to go through this first hole and through the second hole. Like I said, it's quite long, and I'm going to leave a tail. Now I'm going to go through this hole. There are so many different methods of stitching, and you can do some with some lovely patterns on the side. I'm not going to bother doing any patterns for this one because it's getting covered with the cover, but if you do some of the lovely Japanese stitches, then you can do a really decorative spine with it. And this one I'm just going to go back here. Ooh, it gets a bit fiddly on the first one because nothing's really secured in place, but when you get onto the other notebooks and everything sort of starts getting tighter and a bit more tied together, then it's absolutely fine. Okay, now we've done that layer, we can go on to this one. Go through my top hole, into my second. And now I want to catch my thread here. Make sure that that tail stays out. And then I'm going back into the same hole. Out the next one. I'm going to wrap my needle through this whole set of threads. Keep that together. And then, oh, nearly skipped one. Go back into the same hole. Go through the next one. I'm actually thinking about it. I'm not sure I did that with my first hole on the first book. No, I didn't. So, but that's fine. It's not going to make, not really going to make much difference. Okay, now I just need to do sort of like a bit of tweaking here. Make sure everything's nice and tight together, and I can now tie this in place. I'm going to come to the edge of my board here so I can have a bit of leverage on it. Do a few knots. I don't want it coming apart. It's going to be glued as well, so it won't come apart, but it's always better to be safe than sorry. Okay, so now we go on to the next signature. That one through the next hole. Now, if you remember that when you're inside the signature, you're always going on to the next hole, basically. When you're on the outside, you're always staying with the same one, because now I'm going to go back around my thread here and go back through the same hole. So every time on the outside of the signature, you're working with the same hole, and on the inside, you're always working with the next one, if that makes sense. Okay, now I'm going back through that one. I don't know about you, but my brain needs little things like that to remember what I'm doing, because I am useless at remembering generally. So Any little helps? Oh, where did that one go? There we go. Secure that one to here, and then I can go on to my next signature, so on and so forth, until I get to the very end. Right, so I have got to the end of this book block now, and I've just pulled my my thread through the last hole, and I've just done a little knot, so I'm going to repeat that now so you can see what I did. Oh, don't lose the needle. There we go. Pull it through here, and then with this loop I'm going to pull my needle through it and just make a little knot. I'm going to do that several times. Put my needle through that loop and put it tight. And then one last thing because I'm overcautious, drop my thread, I'm going to thread it to the first knot. So just tie both of those together just to make sure. Keeps everything nice and secure. Remember, this is getting glued next anyway, so that's just a little extra precaution to make sure that it's all as safe as it possibly can be. But there you go. We have a book block now, a sketchbook that is fully connected. So my next thing is to glue on some headbands. So I have this, which is a new one. I have to trim that down to the right size and place that on. I'm just wondering whether I could reuse these. Shall we see? As I said, I'm not really going to do anything with this book because it is damaged, so it's not like I'm going to try and recover it or anything. So let's see if I can actually salvage this. Quite nice to have the original headbands as well. I think that'll work actually. I think that'll work really nicely. Yeah. That'll sit up on there like that. I think that's perfect. Okay, good. We're going to do that. So I'm going to put that back in its little bag. Put that to one side for the next project. And let's try and take this one off. I'm not quite sure how old this book is. It's a real shame that it got damaged so badly inside. I'm not quite sure either they didn't notice when they were selling it at the charity shop, or it got damaged while it was at the charity shop. Because it's strange that it was on sale, but I'm glad it was because I'm enjoying breathing a little bit of new life into it. Take this side off. Yeah. Okay. Right. So first things first is I'm going to get my trusty glue, and I am going to put some glue down the spine. So that's my glue there. Next thing I'm going to do is glue my headbands on. So let's put like that. Get my little palettey bit of glue and put it onto here actually. So let's get that into place, and I want to make sure that it's sitting at the head of each of the signatures. That's why it's called a headband. It's not the cleanest process, book binding. It can get a little gluey. Oh, my finger. Right. Let's do the bottom band. I'm quite pleased I could reuse the originals. It's going to look nice. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not the end of the world if I didn't. I have got new headbands like you saw, but it's all part of that sort of, like I said, that integrity of the original book, which might sound like I'm talking absolute twaddle, but I'm quite enjoying it. Okay, get that sitting quite nicely there. Okay, now before that dries, I want to get my spine reinforced even further. Sorry, gluey fingers. And I'm going to put this piece of cotton. So I've cut this cotton calico. Now I think in Northern America at least they call it unbleached cotton. And I'm going to put this on my spine. That helps the glue really adhere to the pages, and it gives us the mechanism to glue the book back into the cover. So now that's on there, I need to put a layer of glue on top of it because I want to really fuse the fabric to the book. Dribble there. Oh, now I'm all fingers and thumbs. All right, okay. And it also helps adhere the headband again. Nice. It's all about reinforcing and making sure that everything is given as much help as it possibly can. Okay. Again. Right. Off of there. Okay. So that is our book block all finished and waiting to go into the book. Now remember I said at the beginning or earlier that the end papers would normally be on the book block and not on the cover. Now before I put this webbing on, this is where I would glue my end papers. Just glue it to the very edge of this book here on each side. But I'm not going to do that because my end papers are already in the book. So because I'm working slightly backwards, but we will make it work. Right, I'm going to let that dry now, and then while that's drying, we can have a look at the book cover. Okay, so I would say that this is all completely dried now. And the moment of truth is, has it all stuck quite nicely? Okay, it's looking promising. It's bending happily. There's no massive gapping, so when I show you this, when it's closed, that's sitting quite nicely. And there's a good hinge on that. And there's a good hinge there as well. Okay, so let's take this masking tape off and assess what's going on underneath. Okay, that's not too bad. Oh, it did pop. Something popped. Oh yeah, okay. It did pop. Right, okay, that's fine. It's not popped down the bottom, so it's only at the top. Okay. I kind of wonder whether I want to... Oh, yeah, no, it popped to the bottom there as well. It's it stayed on the actual thing. It's just this piece is popped. I kind of wonder if I want to wait for the book block to go in, because once I put the book block in, I would usually get a piece of string and wrap it around this crease to really define the crease. So I wonder if I do that then, because then that ensures that it will sit in place once I put that string there. I wonder if that's the best way. Possibly. Let's have a look a bit further down. I wonder if it just needs a bit of glue deeper down, not at the very edge. I think like I said, I'll do the edge, the very very edge later. But I'm just gonna put a bit of glue down there. That's not quite adhered properly down there. Not as much as I like. The other side's done perfectly, but this side hasn't, which is strange because this is the side I thought was going to be okay. You can never tell with bookbinding, and especially with trying to repair old things. Trying to repair anything, really. It's always a matter of trial and error. Okay, let's get my bone folder down here. Press that in place. Okay, I'm going to leave that now, just like that, with a bit of tension, a bit of weight, a bit of gravity on that side, to let that dry, and then we'll come back to it and see how we've got on. I'm really hoping it'll work because I like this cover, and I really want to try and keep these end papers. I don't want to have to rip them out and do a whole reinforcing. Actually, I don't think I need to do. I don't think I need to do, because the structure of the book is fine now. I've got that piece in place. We're just looking at trying to make sure that these bits are kept nice, aren't we? So I don't think that's a problem. Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think once the book block is in place and I get the string around the spine to get that crease defined, I think that's when the spine will sort itself out, because the book will be closed, and then it's a case of any things like this just being secured down, isn't it? So I think we're going to be good. Right, okay. Let's stop messing with that then. Do one quick. He says, stop messing around with it, and then he goes back again. Just one quick crease. One quick down there. And then we're going to leave that this way with gravity forcing that down, making sure that's dry, make sure that stays together. Let that dry and we'll come back to it. Okay, it's the next day. I left everything drying overnight. This is completely dry now and it's working nicely. So I just need to do some shaping on this one in a moment. I'm going to put that there for now. This one, however, I had a look last night before I went to bed, and it was kind of bugging me that the glue wasn't fixing it, if that makes sense. I know that the wood glue is quite strong and potentially maybe a bit too brittle for it. You know, it dries quite solid, if that makes sense. So I used a nice soft PVA before I went to bed and thought that that would do the trick overnight. However, it has done nothing. It's made no difference at all. And yeah, in fact, everything's just kind of coming away. And I think the big problem is it's kind of perished too much. It's too brittle. And I think me taking the book out was probably the only thing that was keeping it together, keeping this, you know, this book cloth in one piece. So I've been musing on what to do, and I kind of wonder whether I use a bit of leather for the spine. I had a look in my leather stash and I found this piece, which is quite nice. And I kind of wonder whether I do this sort of thing. Cover it. I don't want to cover nice fleur-de-lis design there. So maybe I cut that straight. I could do it so it sits with this sort of gold foiling here, maybe the middle one. And then do the same on this side and then have a new spine. Which might work quite nicely actually. Because I think it's just too, I think it's gone too far. So I think I might take it off completely, use the two boards and keep the end papers. I really want to keep these. I really want to keep that. I think that would work well. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to take this spine off and I'm going to use this leather piece to make a nice new spine. And I think that'll work quite well. I want to be careful with my boards because that's the bit I'm really trying to salvage at this point. I want to move that extra because I don't want to chop that. So let's just trim that away. Maybe let's use the scalpel. Ooh. Yeah, we're going to go for it. It's decided. I'm not turning back now. Okay, well, I'm not going to get rid of that because you never know when that could come in useful actually. That might be quite nice on something. You never get rid of anything that could be useful. Even when my partner rolls his eyes at me. I still do it. Okay. So we're back to the drawing board on this. One step forward and two step back, as they say. But I'm feeling good in the fact that I can still keep the end papers. There's just something really nice about the way that this has been handled over the years, the sort of patina it's got. It feels like it's part of the book, obviously, because it is, but I mean, it feels like it shouldn't be disturbed. And it's a silly thing, isn't it? It's a piece of paper, but to me that's important. So let's make a new spine. So I was just saying that I don't like getting rid of things, and things like this is another example of that, because this is going to make the perfect book spine. Why would I get rid of it? I'm going to use my 90-degree angle here just to make sure. Okay. Now I'm keeping it on the curve because the original spine is curved, and I want to try and get as accurate as a width as possible because I made the book block to fit this spine. So I now need to make this new spine fit the book block. Okay. Use my nice straight lines to give me a good indicator. There we go. Right. So that's my new spine. That'll work quite nicely because then it's going to be covered with this leather, and it's quite a nice sturdy leather as well, really. So right, I have my nice brown piece of card again. So let's actually, before I do this, let's just check how it's going to sit on my book block. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, that's good. So let's get that glued onto here, and then while it's drying, we can look at shaping the book block and make sure that it's exactly how we want it. I'll make sure that my glue fills the whole of the spine, goes right to the edges as well. We need to make sure that it adheres nice and evenly and doesn't sort of try and come away again in different areas. If you don't get your glue over the whole surface and nice and even, it can not catch in maybe the center or something, and then you get bubbling happening, and then the whole thing can sort of ping off, really, which I don't want. I had enough of that with the previous spine, as much as I tried to make it work. Okay. Now let's let that dry. Just want to make sure that I'm still getting my arch in here. That was the whole reason I used that kitchen roll center. Quite sure what you call those, actually. Okay, that's good. So that's still keeping its curve. I'm going to pop that to one side, and we're going to look at the book block. The next thing I need to do to this book block is shape it. This is probably going to look quite drastic, but we want to try and get a bit of a curve here at the moment because of the fact that it was flat and it was glued. It was it's quite flat. I want to try and get some shaping. You can do this beforehand, but I kind of like doing it at this stage just because I know that it's sort of set in place, and it sort of it stays where I want it to be. Again, if you're a professional bookmaker, you're probably screaming at me saying I should have done this first, but I'm happy doing it at this stage. So I'm just going to hammer one side, and then I'm going to flip it around and hammer the other side. And the idea is that I'm trying to hammer each end further down so I get the arch happening. This will take a while. Right, I've just been bashing that and it didn't actually take that long. I only wanted a little bit. See how it's just a tiny bit of arching here. I only wanted a little bit because it's quite a flat arch really. It's not too defined, so I think that's going to work nicely. So I'm debating now. Like I said, I'm doing everything kind of in reverse. I'm debating whether it's more sensible to put the boards on first. No, I think I'm going to put the spine on first. Decision made. So the spine has been drying nicely for a bit, so that's fine. I'm going to trim this down now. It's just distorted a little bit because of the drying, but that's going to be fine because I'm going to pop that out. I'm going to pop that on there and it'll be absolutely fine. So I'm going to trim this, and I want to make sure I'm going to give myself about a ½ centimeter for the crease, that sort of divot at the end. Again, it's probably got a name, but I'm not sure the actual name. And I'm going to give myself sort of like a centimeter and a half, I'd say, for connecting it to the board. And then I'm just going to make sure that this is nice and even up here and down the bottom. Okay, so let's trim that. And get my boards. So this is spine take 2. Let's just check I haven't added too much allowance here. No, okay, that's good. That lines up with my line. Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for. So I want that much for the divot, that sort of crease that you get at the end of the spine. Okay. So let's pop some glue on here. My brush and just make sure that I'm gluing that. I don't want any glue on my board if I can help it, so I'm just going to take that away from there. too much glue on there, so let's put that here. Because I can use that glue in a minute for the other side, so it hasn't got to waste. Overestimated that a little bit. Okay. Right, let's pop this in here. Get that lining up like that. Okay, that's looking good. Bring that up slightly. Have a bit of, there we go. Right, somewhere here we go. I have an ink roller, but I'm going to pop a piece of paper over the top just to make sure that just in case there is any ink. I did give it a good clean, so there shouldn't be, but just in case there is, give that a good press down. Okay, nice. It doesn't matter so much on the inside, so let's keep that there for the glue. Press down this side. Okay, excellent, right. This is coming together nicely. Oh God. Dropping things, that's not good, is it? Okay, oh, that was my, that was silly, wasn't it? I forgot that that had glue in it. Okay, but we've got that off. I think that's going to work much better. It already feels much more sturdy. It doesn't feel like anything's going to come apart, so I'm happy with that. Right, let's glue the other side on. So let's use some of the scrap glue that I had. Needs a tiny bit more. Nice. That's going to work. Let's get my other cover. Down. I want that down inside here. What's in my way? I just didn't take that back quite far enough. There we go. That should do it. Yeah, nice. That works. Let's move that out of the way so I don't get anything gluey. I noticed just now I was dangerously close to getting the cover in the glue again. At this point I'm just going to move that down as well. Okay. Right, where's my bit of card gone? That's right, that's okay. So let's put that there and give this a good roll. Okay, I think that's going to be fine. Give it a roller from the other side as well, can I, just to make sure. Okay, this is looking better, isn't it? That's already looking far better. Yeah, that's nice. So we have, that's just warping of the, I was worried that that's actually coming away, but it's not. It's just slightly warping of the paper, which is fine. So now we need to get the leather on that. That's the next step. So I'm just going to trim down this side. Again, this is a plastic ruler, so if you do need to use a plastic ruler, please be careful. That bottle's not quite heavy enough for that. I don't think the magnifying glass will be either. Oh, there's a heavier bottle. That'll be fine. I've just changed my blade as well, just to make sure that it's going to be nice and sharp. There we go. There we go. That's cut that quite nicely. So now I want to check how wide this needs to be. So I'm going to say that I want it to be coming to about here. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of gold foiling here. I don't really want to cover too much of it, so I think I'm going to try and go for this second line here. So I still got 2 lines outside of it. Yeah, let's try that. I think that's enough to play with. I'm going to add a few more mil just to account for that that sort of recess on each side. And then how far is that from this side? So that's about 7 millimeters. So if I do the same here, that's coming to about there. So if I did this at 6.5, that should be enough to give me, because this is measuring for that allowance here, that's measuring 6.1. So that's 2 mil recess here, 2 mil recess there. I think that's probably going to be fine. Let's do 6.5. So that's trimmed. Let's mark this somewhere over here. Here we go. I have a white gel pen. If I get, you know what, on the safe side, I'm going to give it 6.7. Just to be careful, just to be extra careful. Oh, I have to be careful here because there is a trim here. I'm hoping I can get the whole of that out of that. Let's just double check how wide my book is. Because I'm going to need some room to... Ooh, okay, that's quite tight. Okay, no, I think if I do that, I think I will probably get away with that. Yeah, because that's my line, so I will just get away with that. That's very lucky. Then kind of the nice thing about working with sort of materials that were once something else or some scraps of something. There's a lot of problem solving to get it to work how you want it to work. But when you've got it to work, it's very satisfying. Okay. Oh, that was actually the spine piece. Let's just double check how long this needs to be. So I'm going to trim it further up here, just to make sure that I've got plenty to fold under. Icon. Okay, that's not going to work like that because I haven't got anything to anchor it, so I'm going to use the scissors. There we go. So these two lines are nice and straight now. So that's going to sit like that, and I've got, yeah, just enough play there. I'm going to put this side on here because I've got more of a defined line to follow on this one. I need to make sure, yeah, got plenty to play with there. That's good. Okay, so let's be brave and get some glue on this half. I'm going to be as careful as I possibly can to only, I'm going to go just before that line. But I want to make sure that I've got plenty of glue there so it doesn't dry out so quickly. Get it in this recess. It's really important to get as much as, cover all of your recess because I want it to mold to that. I don't want it coming away, which was one of the big problems with trying to reuse the original spine. All of the book cloth was just coming away from that line, and that's why it was crumbling, because it was brittle, but it wasn't, it was too brittle to properly adhere to that recess. And every time the book spine moved, it would just chip away, just keep coming away. Just going to do the first half of this spine. Make sure that it's all completely covered with a good even layer of glue. Up there. This is going to have some strain on it, so I don't want to shortchange my gluing here. Right. Oh. Okay. Let's offer up. Let's move that out of the way. Let's offer up this piece of leather. I'm going to put a bit of tension in it. Yeah, nice. Okay. That's working well. And let's make sure it goes right into that crease. Where's that roller? So that's even. Yeah, great. I'm happy with that. I'm going to use my bone folder to make sure that this crease is really adhered. There. Okay. I'll be careful down here that that doesn't come away. So I don't really want to move my spine too much yet. But that looks quite nice, doesn't it? I'm just worried that there's not enough, but I think it's going to be fine. Yeah, I think that's going to be fine. Now, how is it looking on this side? Probably got too much on that side now, haven't I? So I need to trim away some of that. Because I want it to be even. At the moment, yeah, we're covering too much. So we need to take a good centimetre off of that. I don't want it to be lopsided. So that's fine, that's easy enough. He says. Yeah. Let's move back. And get my ruler. Okay. Actually, interestingly, that has misshapen slightly as well, so it's a good job we're doing this. Yeah. Okay. Is that okay? Not too much. Oh, potentially it's too much. I'm gonna do it so it's lining up there. So when that comes back, yeah, that I think is going to be fine because I've got to remember there's some tension in here as well. So let's just move that to that line. Yeah, okay, that's good. There we go. Okay. How is that sitting at the front? Oh yeah, good. That's going to sit where I want it to. Excellent. Okay, I am happy bunny with that. Okay, let's move this bit back here. So it goes right to that line, nice. And let's get some glue in here. I'm going to make sure that I've got plenty of glue on this part, just up to the edge of the fleur-de-lis there. Much there. Right, there we go. Right in there. Okay. I haven't got glue on my hands. Oh, and paper. Right. My bone folder in here. And then my roller on this part. At this point, I'm very confident there's no ink left on this, so I don't mind not using the paper. I want to make sure that it's got a really good bond. Annoyingly, there's a tiny bit here which doesn't seem to have bonded well. Anything else? Hard to tell about this bit. No, it's not quite got there either. I just need to kind of check all the way up through here. There was some sort of like bend in the leather, so it's kind of just absorbed the glue and not quite absorbed it in the right place. So it's not sitting in that bit where I want it to. It just wasn't gluing. I apologise that I keep knocking the camera tripod as well. I had it in a slightly better location yesterday, but I seem to have moved it without realising. Okay. There we go. Let's just do... Right, I'm happy with that. Let's get this over here. On each end, and then we can look at getting the book block in place, I'd say. This is a very strange way of doing this. It feels peculiar because I feel like I said, I feel like I'm doing this in reverse. I normally wouldn't have such a finished thing in here. I'd be folding all of this back in one go, but I wanted to make sure that I kept as much as possible, so here we are. Right, let's fold that back and make sure that I've got a really nice bond here. Okay, this is looking good. It's looking good. Looks fairly even as well from there. I have just realised that there is a bit of this spine showing here on each side. that's easily solved. I just trim that bit out. I think I was just a bit too over-eager with that part of the spine. There we go. But again, I wouldn't normally have that issue because I would normally be binding the whole edge, but in this case, I am not. Does not come out. There we go. Yeah, nice. Right. Let's do that up here before I fold that back. I can get to it a bit easier. Okay. Now, interestingly, this part of the leather down here is just because leather's a natural product, isn't it? So a natural material, so it's just naturally ever so slightly thicker at this part, which I didn't notice so much when I was cutting it. But that's okay. It's glued quite nicely actually. Took a little bit more pressure. So that is my cover then. It looks, yeah, I think that looks quite even. I don't want to do that just yet. I want to make sure that that's dry fully. So we'll come back to that in a little while, I think. Okay, so this one's dried quite nicely. Now I'm going to start getting the book block in here finally. I'll have a nice sketchbook. I don't want to bend that too much because I've just opened these up nicely. So let's get some glue in here. I'm going to put a bit on this edge to help it along its way. Be careful because I don't want the glue seeping through onto the book block itself, because I need to be able to put the end paper in that part. Get some of this glued up. Right, now remember I'm kind of doing this in reverse, so let's make sure I'm in the right place. There's the middle of my spine here. Let's check I'm even at each end. Yep. And then I'll get my webbing, my piece of calico in this instance, press down in to here. Now I can put that back over. Give that a good press down. Oh, that's sitting nicely. Yeah, good. Okay, that is exactly where I want that to sit. That's nice. Yeah, good press. Okay, so let's repeat that process for this side. I'm running low on my glue. There we go. Oh, a bit down here as well. Make sure that that's sitting where I want it to. Let's get that webbing in there. Put it nice and taut. In theory, this should work. Like I said, it is kind of going backwards a little bit. Oh, fiber's sticking to me. Okay. Yeah, nice. Oh, let's come off a bit. There we go. Yes. Oh, nice. Okay, great. That's working. Okay, that's looking promising. It's finally looking like a book. When this has been, when these ridges, these dimples have been defined, that'll look just that little bit nicer. The book is in the right place. Yeah, we've got that little bit of curve going on, which is what we wanted. Okay, that's sitting quite nicely, isn't it? So now we need to get these end papers glued, and then we can get it sort of clamped down for a while to dry off, and then get some string in there while it's drying to really define those ridges, and then we're good to go. Okay, ooh, something here. Oh, it's just where that, remember I said earlier it had that bit of extra ease going on. It's just sort of popped there because it had a bit too much leather. So let's get some glue under there. Hold that in place for a little bit. Make sure it's going to bond. Okay, so now I need to see where this white line is, from where the old book block was glued in. I need to put some glue here to then adhere it to this new book block. So let's get some glue in there. Slightly over there. I'm going to go into here. Make sure that that's sitting really well. My bone folder in here. Nice. That's working. I'll do the same on the back. That one came off quite well actually. But I think, if I remember rightly, one side did put up less of a fight when I was trying to remove it. Oh, my glue is really at the end. Okay, that's glued into place. It's got my bone folder in here again. Do the same thing. It's all marrying up quite nicely, which is good. I'm happy with how it's turning out. It's definitely not the process I thought I was going to be doing with this book. I thought I was just going to be taking the book block out, putting a new one in with new end papers and all those sorts of things. I then decided to make things that a little bit more complicated for myself. And then the spine didn't want to quite play ball, so. But we got here. That's looking quite nice now. I'm happy with that. So, one more process, and that is to get some twine in here to define those dimples and give it a good press under a load more heavy books to really clamp all of it together. Right, so I have some nice thick string here. I'm going to place under the book at this this sort of dimple area, like I said, the recess that we want to achieve. I'll give myself a good nice long tail. Right, so let's get my knot started, and then I can tweak everything. So, okay, let's get that like that. Okay, well that's sitting actually, it's bang on where I want it to be. So when this is got pulled tighter, it's going to pull this dimple really nicely in and help define it. So I'm happy with where that's sitting. Let's give it a good pull. Make sure that it's really getting the definition I want it to. Make sure that the spine's not fighting me. There we go. Nice. Tight. Oh, that's my tension there. I know there's ways to do this with slip knots and whatever else, but I'm never very good at slip knots, so I'm just going to do a basic knot. Okay, I think we are good to go with that. I'm quite happy with how that's turned out. It's not looking too bad, is it? It's nice and clean and straight on the side. Bit of bumping here, but again, do you remember I said there's that ridge in the leather, so I'm going to give that a good press now, and that should hopefully eliminate that. And what I'm going to do, I'll move this out of the way. Oh, it does show how dusty working with paper can be. If I get that on the edge of my desk mat here, and then put books on top of it, that will hopefully press that ever so slight rippling I have on the leather on the other side. Okay, we're going to leave that there with books on top of it for several hours probably, and it will be the last stage. That's it. We are done. We just need gravity to do its work to give us that nice defined line and make sure that the glue sets exactly where we want it to sit. But on the whole, we have a sketchbook. That turned out to be much more of a long drawn out process than I thought it would be. I didn't expect to be trying to do some book restoration and then ultimately fail and have to put a new spine on the book, but I'm glad that I persevered and I'm really happy with the results. So this is the final book, and it's been sitting for a while under some books, so we now have some nice definition in the dimples, because I'm not really sure what they're called, and it opens up really nicely. I've got lots of surface area for my sketching, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So if you enjoyed following along with that, I'd really appreciate if you wanted to subscribe to the channel and put any comments in the comment box about any suggestions you might have for the channel going further, or if you enjoyed the video, what else you think I could have done. If there are any expert bookmakers out there that watch this, please, like I said, I'm not a professional bookbinder. I just have taken some techniques that I remember doing at college and some other things that I picked up, and I've sort of hoped for the best, and so far it's done me okay. So don't judge me too harshly, please. If you would like to subscribe to my Patreon, if you go over to the link that I'm showing on the screen now, I have a couple of different tiers that you can join. I've kept it simple with just 2 tiers, and you can get access to early videos or early release of the videos, some Patreon exclusives, and I'm releasing Mantle magazine every month, sorry, and also my historical costume podcast. So it'd be great to see you over there. And until the next time, goodbye.